Hey guys, we're live. How about that? It's Tuesday again. You know what
Hey
that
guys,
means.
yeah, PIEGUYRULZ here for the first time today. I definitely haven't been streaming a bunch.
No, of course not.
Yes, welcome everyone to the award show Audit. How do I sound? How does Shadow sound?
Am I
How do
too
we
quiet?
look?
Or
How's
is one of
how's
us
my
too
bow
quiet?
tie?
Yeah. How's my cue card that I've it's always the same cue card every show, but I just like scribble it out and then like right over top of it. You should honestly see the other side. It's just a mess of text. You can hardly read it anymore.
Hello. Yes, welcome. We've got a lot of stuff going on today. We have five. I think all five are interesting to talk about in various ways. Five nominees. Um,
That we do.
yep. We also have a special guest star who I'm really excited about. We'll bring him in a moment.
And I don't want to disappoint anyone, but it's not Gendy Tarkovsky. I'm sorry.
No, this is
He's not here
yeah.
this week, unfortunately.
This is someone really in the studio.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, today the Nicktoon Smash Bros came out. I did a bit of streaming over on the Rust Bucket, the Ink Tank streaming channel. Don't say anything, Shadow. And over on Pie Guy Plays. So if you want to see me play that new game, check that out. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It was really hard to hold my tongue there, but I did it for you.
Okay, thank you, friend. And speaking of doing it for her, I'd like to bring in our special guest this week, the Real Jims.
Hooray! Thank you for the intro.
Yeah.
It is nice to be here on your fine audio video stream, I guess.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Jim and I have been doing streams on Twitter recently.
On Twitter, yes, the biggest platform around.
Yeah. I'm sure this won't go the way of Vines. I'm sure Twitter streaming will be the future.
Hey, Twitter Spaces, like with Facebook down yesterday, I think Twitter Spaces was like the only thing up for a while, so.
Everyone was talking.
Don't knock Twitter Spaces, yeah.
Yes, so he's here. He's going to join us for The Simpsons and Futurama. We didn't ask him to watch SpongeBob, but yeah. So before all that, let's set the scene here. The year was 2004. Shrek 2 was the #1 film that year.
Yeah,
followed
it was.
with Harry Potter in second, Spider-Man 2 in third, and The Incredibles in fourth. Wow.
Wow.
Shrek 2 beat out The Incredibles. Also, Shrek 2 beat out The Passion of the Christ at 5. And surprisingly, Shark Tale is on the list of top 10 at number 9. Weird days for cinema.
True that.
Yup. Yeah, so that was what was going on there. I think that properly set us all in 2004.
Yeah, pretty much. That sums it all up, really.
Yeah. Shrek 2. Shrek 2 was on
2.
everyone's minds. All right, Shadow, would you like to announce the nominees this week?
Absolutely. So we're doing the 2004 hour, or well, less than an hour category for the animated primetime Emmy category. We've got 5 nominees, as per usual. The first of which being The Simpsons, The Way We Weren't. We've got Futurama with The Sting. Samurai Jack, The Birth of Evil. South Park, It's Christmas in Canada. And last but not least, SpongeBob with Ugh.
Yes. Okay, so as I mentioned, I think all of these are interesting episodes. Some good, some bad, some quirky. Let's start off with The Simpsons, which we usually leave for last, but since we have Jim here, we'll start it off.
Okay.
No, I thought we were going to do The Simpsons last to just make me sit around awkwardly for like a half hour.
Yeah. Hear us discuss Ugh from a show, a caveman episode where the characters don't speak English. That's just a weird take on SpongeBob. No.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get to that. So The Simpsons, The Way We Weren't, is an episode in which we find out that Marge was not Homer's first kiss. He actually kissed a girl at summer camp who turned out to be Marge. And Marge was upset about this because, through wacky Simpsons shenanigans, Homer stood her up on their second date. But they kept the rocks, so everything's fine.
Bravo.
Okay. So I should point out the title is a reference to was it The Way We Was? The Way We Were? I don't know.
I think
Whatever
the way we were, I think, is a song, like an old timey song, I think. And then they did The Way We Was, a season 2 episode,
right.
And now we're doing season 15's The Way We Weren't. It's very convoluted.
Right. But the tie-in there is that episode was about Homer and Marge dating in high school, and this is about like surprise they actually had a first date earlier.
Yeah, I just looked it up. It's originates from a 1973 romance film.
Oh, it's a film.
Yeah, the title originates from a film, and maybe the concept too. I'm gonna read the description while you guys keep talking, but
okay. Jim, what did you think about this episode?
It's pretty solid, I think. I think it definitely peaks probably in the first half of the episode, and then the second half, I just kind of like my eyes glazed over by the time they got to the fat camp. But I think it's solid enough for season 15. What do you guys think of it?
No, I agree. I don't think this is really a special episode in a lot of ways. Like, it's a flashback one, sure, but by season 15, they've done tons of them. Like, it's not a new concept. It's fine for The Simpsons. I don't think this deserved to be nominated for an Emmy. Well, actually, I guess I should mention the kind of the weird art shift that happens when Homer and Marge kiss.
You know the fantasy sequence?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's like this really kind of trippy sequence. And, thinking about that, maybe that kind of inches it on the list. It definitely, I guess that's a better justification than half the time The Simpsons gets nominated for just kind of fine episodes.
Yep.
We always try to kind of judge, like, would we have included this? And to be award worthy, we kind of think it needs to either touch upon something really culturally important, or do something really special with animation, or just perhaps be a very, very good episode in one way or another. And I don't think this qualifies for a lot of those, except for maybe a little bit interesting animation. Mm-hmm. But I was satisfied with the story, but I do agree that the thing that kind of gets me about this is I like the twist that it's Marge, even if it is like convoluted. It's fine enough for a Simpsons story. I don't really like. I don't get why they didn't leave it as a much bigger surprise towards the end of the episode. They kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, they give it away too soon. Like, you'd think an episode like this that's like a big twist ending, whereas that happens at like the end of Act 1 that we find out that it was Marge.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they kind of turn it into like a Marge is upset at Homer thing, even though she kind of rationally knows it's not really his fault. Which is just like, it's Homer and Marge are in marital troubles, and then they're not. Like, it's actually kind of funny because the episode we saw and talked about yesterday, Jim, that ended really abruptly with like Abe giving like a happy ending. This is like very similar, where it's like, oh, well, they kept the rocks, so that just magically makes it all okay. Like,
yeah, the back half was a little bit clunky, I felt like, because I don't know, I don't necessarily mind that they gave away the twist that it was Marge early, just because, well, I think functionally, if Homer's telling the story in front of Marge, like, she has to point it out that, hey, that lines up with my specific memories, Like,
but if she's upset about it, maybe she realizes it and then bitterly kind of tells a similar story from her perspective without giving it away to the kids or the audience.
Yeah, but wouldn't the audience start connecting up that, oh, this camp story is sounding kind of similar, like, especially when they get to the dinner scene? I don't know. Like, I feel like the audience would catch on really quickly to what's specifically going on. I don't know. What do you think, Shadow? Do you think that would work?
No, I'm kind of in agreement with you on that one, Jim. I think given that it's like the same exact setting and there'd be like a very similar parallel, I feel like most of the audience would be able to put 2 and 2 together. But it wouldn't be as direct as the episode just outright saying like, hey, it was me, Marge, the whole time. Um, but I'm actually reading up on the plot of this film, and the only similarities that I can really find between the two are in the film, the two main love interest characters meet each other when they're young, and then they part separate ways for a long time, and then they get together again. And then the ending is much different because in the film, minor spoiler alert, they split up.
Still happen on The Simpsons. There's time.
Yeah. Fair enough. But that's about it as far as the influences go. I'm kind of of the mindset that I think the only reason this got nominated, well, the only two reasons are A, it's kind of, for lack of a better term, lore important in the sense that it gives a kind of some backstory to Marge and Homer.
If you remember, Shadow, remember when we watched Eternal Moonshine of the Simpson Mind and they broke one of Homer's memories and replaced it with a poo? That's from this episode. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Because he's like, it's like a picture of his first kiss, and they like shatter through it when they're in the bubble. Right. And then Homer's like, that was my first kiss, and Bart, who was it with? And Bart's like, a poo, and then it replaces that memory.
Okay, so in Homer's mind, this episode isn't canon then. Gotcha. But I think that animated sequence in the middle where everything gets all trippy and they go on like that whole montage, that was probably the main driving reason, was just the animation of that sequence really stood out to me, and I thought that was definitely very visually interesting. I don't think that it sustains the whole episode being worthy of a nomination, but that by itself was definitely that had my attention the whole time, and it was probably my favorite part, honestly. It was the most just interesting in general. As far as the story goes, I think it's a fine story. I mean, I thought it was charming.
Can I put 2 weeks in a row that we've seen a young comic book guy on the award show Audit?
Oh my gosh, you're right. That's crazy.
Yeah. No, I think with a lot of Simpsons, it really is like, I enjoyed like the first half-ish of this. I thought a lot of the camp stuff was fun. They really did try to go for like a very summer camp vibe of hanging out with your friends. I don't really get what they did with Mo. I don't know. I don't know why he had to be such a jerk in this. Or why they even bothered to write an excuse as to why he was there, even though he was older than them. Like, But no, I like the kind of vibes, and I don't know. It was really charming seeing a really young Homer and Marge. I give a lot of criticism to current Marge's voice. She sounds very haggard, but I do think Julie Kavner actually did a really good job at like portraying a very young sounding Marge, which I didn't think would be possible.
What did you think of that story beat where you don't quite know if it's Marge yet, like where you're hearing her through the little flaps of like the dining room? Like at the beginning, it's just supposed to be some girl and we don't know who it is. Mm-hmm. But like Marge has such a distinctive kind of raspy voice that I don't know if it really plays that beat where, you know what I mean? Where it does sound a lot like Marge, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, because I've seen this episode before, so I knew the twist. How about you, Shadow?
I kind of picked up on it right away. You're very right. It is a very distinct voice, and even though it's, it's being delivered at like kind of a higher timbre to make her sound younger, I still like picked up on it immediately. I wasn't really surprised.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But they could have done this better. I don't know. I thought it was fine for the era that it came out in. It's like a pretty solid episode. It definitely felt a little like some of the cuts, like I don't know how to explain it properly, but it felt like maybe a lot of some things were cut out of the episode where like Marge would be sitting in one position and the camera angle would show her, and then it would like break the 180-degree rule to show her from another angle or something. Like I don't exactly know how to explain it, but I don't know. There was like a little bit of the editing in this that felt a little jarring in the present day sequences.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just me.
What did you guys think of some of the jokes in it? Like there were some nice little continuity kind of jokes that I think I appreciated. Like you can say what you want about like the Mo crank phone call thing. Like I like the idea of like it being kind of the beginning of Mo's the Mo prank calls. I don't know what to make of him saying, "Well, that's the beginning of that," and then looking at the camera like that's kind of funny, but it also kind of breaks my brain. The fourth wall break there.
I liked it because I didn't quite like I wasn't thinking in the context of the Bart prank. So Shadow doesn't know this, but in very early Simpsons, there's like a recurring gag where Bart calls Mo. I think they did it such a lot because they could reuse some of the footage. But you know, Bart says a fake name and Mo says it, and it's like, you know, just some, you know, Mr. Butt, I got a call for an eat my butt, like that sort of just really dumb joke. But I didn't get it until Mo said that, and then I just kind of. It does break your brain a little bit because it is 100% a fourth wall break, but I thought it was funny.
Yeah, it always catches me off guard. And then like but like I feel like Homer also goes through a lot of weird stuff because like we also see him at the end of the episode kiss Patty Bouvier like when they're younger. So we know that he's canonically kissed like Patty, who he hates with every fiber of his being. But then at the beginning of the episode, we literally have him kissing Milhouse Van Houten. Like Homer really goes through a lot of like weird kissing situations in this episode.
Yeah, it's very strange. That's a very strange joke that they really dwell on. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
And then Milhouse just kind of hangs around the rest of the episode like a jealous lover or something. It's like the weirdest. It's the weirdest joke line that they go for.
I like the sea captain jokes. How?
Oh yeah.
There's a younger sea captain that shows up to sail Homer to like the girls' camp, and when he shows up, like Marge thinks that like he's her date for a second. And then I like the fact that he's just sitting there in present day for no, like it's just such a it's a really silly Simpsons gag, and I liked that. There was definitely some jokes here. I think.
Oh yeah, shout out to Marge's weird like walk that she does in the past and future. Like it's like a weird like duck waddle or something. I don't know what they're going for there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. This was like fine. It's like. It's not a stand. I think in any other show, this would be just like a good episode. But because it's The Simpsons, it's got so much better to compare it to. Like, yeah,
season 15 is a little tricky to find a Emmy nom because I did look over the list of season 15 episodes, and like they could have gone for the Pie Man episode as in season 15 if they want to go for fun superhero. They also could have gone for Fraudcast News, which was the finale, which is basically like a media conglomeration story with Lisa and Mr. Burns. I think those are probably the two other nominees. But it seems like with this one, they kind of just went for the episode with Hart and Schmaltz, I think, with Homer and Homer
cool animation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. It's one of the least interesting things we're going to talk about this week, to be honest. But yeah, I think it did fine. I mean, it's a Simpsons flashback episode that didn't enrage the fan base, so that's something. Right, yeah. Jim? Unless I missed it.
I mean, I don't recall. I don't think I was on the Simpsons internet scene actively then, but I don't recall like a big furor over it, no.
It's cute, too. I could definitely see if they did this in some other way, it would upset people, because it does kind of... I guess the only thing to say is that it really does make it seem like Marge and Homer were like literally destined for each other, and it depends on whether you like that sort of thing or not. I think within the context of the show, I think that's fine, because it is The Simpsons. But I could see someone kind of being bugged by it because it is. I mean, super, super, super contrived coincidence of the way events unfolded. But I thought it was cute.
Yeah, it's a solid enough episode.
This is another one of those episodes that I'd put in like the decent category, kind of like that one episode with what's his name? The bully character and Bart becoming
Nelson.
friends. Yeah, that's
right.
A
hawed couple.
Yeah, it's like, to me, it's like, yeah, they're decent episodes. I kind of like what they're doing. It's an interesting character dynamic, but it doesn't like outright scream Emmy nominee or anything like that for me.
It screams to me, top 10 of the middle season's YouTube video.
Wait, this episode or that episode?
The hawed couple. I'm making a joke because it's on. Jim just released a video that included that episode.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
20 from the middle years. I put the Nelson Bard episode in there.
Okay.
I think I prefer that episode to this one.
I think
to
I
be
do
honest.
too, a little bit more.
I think I prefer this one. Maybe I'm a sap. And speaking of honey, wait. All right, let's move on to the
sap.
You were close. You were close.
I was gonna say sap and honey both come out of a tree, but that's not even correct.
Yeah.
Well, bees live in a tree. Okay, anyway, yes, speaking of star-crossed lovers, let's move on to Futurama's The Sting. Okay, so since no one else is going to talk,
We're gonna go somewhere with it. I don't know. Hooray,
Yeah.
Futurama. That's my statement.
Okay, so The Sting is an episode in which the professor sends the crew out on a mission to the deadly space wasps. Or are they bees? I think they were called space wasps in the pilot. They might be bees. I don't know.
I think they're bees here.
Yeah, because the whole basically this is a callback to the pilot where the professor has career chips because it was contents of space wasp's stomach.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it says on the packet. You're right.
Yes, and then so here the professor says like, "Oh, you guys can't go on this mission to the deadly space bees. It killed my my last crew, and they were much better than you guys." But Leela's really adamant, so they go and do this dangerous mission, and through a series of events, a bee stings through Fry and hits Leela as well, seemingly killing Fry. And then the rest of the episode is Leela dealing with her guilt for the apparent death of Fry, and then twist ending.
Yep.
So Shadow, I gotta know, as someone who hadn't seen this episode before, obviously you know Fry lives because of just the context of the series. You saw the series finale. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you knew really any way the story was going. What did you think? Were you thrown off by the twist? Were you fooled at any point into thinking Fry could actually be dead? Or
I was pleasantly surprised with the episode as a whole. I really enjoyed it. As far as figuring out the ending, I, for a while, was thinking that they were going to somehow find a way to bring him back to life rather than the twist ending that actually turned out to be, the ending.
Because they actually do that.
Exactly. So that's
they
kind
do
of
that in another episode in the series.
And there's the whole thing with I figured that maybe with Leela seeing him, it was foreshadowing, or it was a way for him reaching out to her to find a way to bring him back to life. That's where my mind was going for most of the episode. And then when it kind of pulled the switch on me, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I liked it. Yeah, I really liked it as a whole. And the kind of explanation for why Leela keeps hearing Fry and seeing him and all that. I was genuinely impressed with this episode. This was another very enjoyable Futurama episode for me. I really liked it.
It has to be one of the best episodes that was mostly just a dream, right? It's one of those rare times where the most of the events of the episode were a dream ending is justified and earned, and you feel good. You don't feel like the whole thing was a screw you. I think this episode's brilliant, to be completely honest. I love that it keeps you so much on your toes. In that, first they try the explanation that Fry's natural DNA that was in the couch mixed with the royal jelly to bring him back, and then it's Fry's still alive out in space. They buried him alive accidentally, and it's there's so many different ways that you think the story could go. It's an episode that treats the audience like it knows enough about science fiction to know what it could possibly do. Right? To know these are ways that... Listen, in another episode, I would completely buy that, the royal jelly worked or whatever. They've done sillier things. So I love that, and I love the ending because it's completely foreshadowed all the way through. Fry repeatedly tells Leela to wake up over and over again, and we point blank see that the space wasp sting goes through Fry. I don't know. I think it's a really, really beautifully made episode. How about you, Jim?
Oh, I totally agree. I think personally this is one of the best Futurama episodes I've ever done. It's pretty easily in my top 5, to be quite honest. I think it's a beautifully directed episode. I think like I think what I liked most about the episode is just how it builds. I think how it starts in a fairly sober, rational place, and every subsequent time that Leela wakes up, it gets progressively more manic and surreal. Like they're constantly twisting with the audience and just confusing us in general. Like at one point she wakes up and she has Fry's jacket, and it becomes this big mystery of why is it Fry's jacket, but it turns out it's Leela's jacket after all. And then like they end up bringing him back to life, and then that ends up going awry. Like everything gets progressively more surreal. Like they're literally doing the "Don't worry, be happy" scene at one point, and like talk about like this is really the podcast of or like I guess video stream of like surreal dream sequences, huh? Because like those bees stinging everybody was just a trip.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Like Shadow, did you like buy like how did you like buy into each of those plot points? Like when the jacket showed up, did you feel that he was really out there somewhere?
Yeah, so like I was kind of hung up on that because part of me was thinking that
hung up.
Yeah, part of me was thinking that like, yeah, maybe he did manage to find a way to give it to her. The other thing was maybe she just had one of his jackets somewhere in her room or whatever, and she subconsciously like picked it up. That was one of my internal justifications that I was coming up with. After having seen the episode, however, I now interpret it as Fry actually put his jacket on her, and that translated into her dream of her like waking up and seeing his jacket on her. That's how I kind of interpret it, just kind of like putting the outside frame story back into the dream. So that's kind of how I view it now, which I thought was really cool.
That's clever. I never thought of that.
Yeah, I've seen this episode maybe dozens of times, and I had never considered that maybe he put his jacket on her. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so much to love here. I like that. I mean, right off the bat, it's so clever tying it to the pilot because we know that these bees are very dangerous, right? Like they've killed people. I mean, talk about story stuff. The fact that it's Leela's fault. They wouldn't have gone on the mission if Leela didn't push so hard. They wouldn't have taken back that bee. Leela wanted to take one of the queens back, and that's the one that stings her and Fry. Like if it wasn't for Leela, they wouldn't even had that bee. So it is all.
That does seem really stupid of her. Every time she does that, I was like, you know what I mean? Because Leela's supposed to be like the smart character, and the moment she's like, "Let's take this bee with us," and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" You're like, this is pretty dumb for like Leela's standards.
I don't know that I agree with that. I mean, I think her idea is sound. Of like, well, if we just take this, we can sell a lot of honey. And then I mean, it's just kind of canon in at least one other episode. Actually, no, a few other episodes. She's impulsive. Yeah, like Pika says. We see the what is it? The Anthology of Interest, which, you know, proves that she's impulsive, and we see what is it? There's the space whale episode, which actually plays out very similarly to this one, where she becomes obsessed. She's like very driven and obsessed, and I agree. It was, you know, obviously it's kind of dumb, but yeah. I think it works, and I think she doesn't like being told she can't do something, so she just goes for it. Yeah, I like the humor of this episode as well. The ending is very, very sweet, and then they this is a great joke where they each tell each other they smell because they haven't showered, and it's one of those rare jokes after a heartwarming moment that doesn't undercut how heartwarming that moment is. Right? Like there's a lot of a lot of jokes on like The Simpsons or Futurama, the Matt Groening shows really, where it'll be a heartwarming moment and then they can't linger on it too long. They have to tell some joke that really like, you know, cuts down the sincerity of the moment. But I felt like that was just a joke that's funny, but funny in a very like non-mean sort of way.
Yeah. I really like that joke in the middle where like where the professor wants to study Leela and has her lie down and it's a guillotine. and then she's like, "Can't you examine my brain without taking it off?" And he's like, "Yes, easily." And he like holds up this thing to her.
Oh yeah, well, and that whole scene, because the thing goes off and it's like making all sorts of noises, and he's like, "Unbelievable!" And she's like, "Fry's still alive?" And he's like, "Nope, no activity whatsoever. No, like no trace of Fry at all." Oh, and how about there's other continuity stuff too. The fact that all of Fry's love interests show up to his funeral, as well as Gunter.
Yeah, I love the Amazonian. Like, I'm sure Shadow didn't was like, "What the heck is this?" But like the Amazonian girl was like, "He gave good snoo," and then all the girls behind are just like, giving the kind of motion.
And even the radiator bot.
Oh yeah.
That's actually an Emmy-nominated episode, so we will see that one.
Oh, okay.
Amazon Women in the Mood, yeah.
That'll be a trip. That'll be next time, I think, because isn't it the previous year? I think.
I'm not sure.
No,
the next time is Jurassic Park, I think.
Yeah.
Next time is Jurassic Park.
Okay, so it's
2001.
Yeah.
2001 is that episode.
Wow. At any rate, there's also references to sci-fi stuff. There's the obligatory 2001 reference, but Fry's funeral is also like partially based on Spock's funeral from Star Trek.
Yeah, when they played I'm Walking on Sunshine on the bagpipes, I always like catch myself because I'm like, wait a minute, that's not Amazing Grace. And then I was like, oh, it's the reference to the Futurama. So yeah.
Yeah, Fry's theme song is Walking on Sunshine, Shadow.
Of course.
He's just a happy guy. It's also I couldn't help but think this because I have just recently watched Disenchantment. But it made me think of Elfo's death and how Bean feels guilty over that. not that Disenchantment and Futurama have anything to do with each other. No, siree.
No, not at all.
But yeah, no, I don't know really what more you could ask for in a Futurama episode from the Sting. It's got comedy, references, continuity, a good storyline, a really like justified. That it's just like it's right there. There's so many twists that come out of absolute nowhere, but the fact that this episode just it just like tells you basically what's happening, and you just don't even pick up on it. And no matter how many times I watch this episode, even though I know all of these things are fake outs, I still very much enjoy the ride. And always feel so bad for Leela. Leela is portrayed very, very well in this episode.
Oh yeah, totally agree. I think you hit the nail on the head in that even if you know the twist at the end, the story is so twisty, but it's also like built upon Fry and Leela's relationship so well that it still does have a lot of rewatch value in a later viewing.
It's also one of the very few, if not only, episodes that is kind of about Fry and Leela's relationship from Leela's perspective. Like, I'm trying to think. I mean, it's not a super relationship-heavy episode in terms of Leela doesn't miss him in a romantic sense necessarily, but clearly there's a strong bond between the two.
They've done other episodes, like, they kind of get that a little bit in the Parasites Lost one, where it's kind of like, from her point of view of Fry treating her well. And then there's also the late Philip J. Fry, where he goes in the future, and we kind of
That's a Fry episode. We see her perspective,
but the love story, I guess it's mostly Fry, like, missing her, but, like, the actual love story of her, of being with her while she's missing Fry when he disappears. I don't know. I feel like we get a lot of Leela in that one, too. Okay.
Well, I'm just saying I think it's very nice that we have a very, very, very Leela-centric episode that really kind of helps define their bond and relationship. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely the most Leela POV we get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So... and yeah, I love that. I can't think of Don't Worry, Be Happy without this episode. Like, I always think about these characters exploding. So weird.
I noticed between the two episodes, we had a lot of very happy musical montages, because the first episode we had in the summertime, and then So Happy Together, and then we literally get Don't Worry, Be Happy in this episode.
Yeah, and Walking on Sunshine. Also, Shadow, the Parasites Lost episode that he referenced, do you remember that one?
Yeah.
It's an episode where the characters go inside Fry.
Oh,
but it's the one that I picked as the best.
right. right.
Yeah, Jim, I don't know if I ever told you, but the finale of the recast, we watched cumulatively like 30 episodes. We didn't each watch 30, but together we watched like 30 some episodes where a character shrinks down and goes inside other characters' bodies. And although the Futurama one doesn't involve shrinking, it's basically the same thing. But I actually deemed it was like the best of all those episodes.
Oh, nice. I mean, it's a really good episode.
It is. It is.
Fantastic Voyage episodes, man.
Yeah. The key was that they didn't actually shrink. That's it. If they actually shrink, then it's bad. No. At any rate, I think, Jim, if you have to compare the Sting with The Way We Weren't, which one would you pick to be awarded an Emmy?
I mean, the two are very, very similar episodes, you know. But like, obviously, I'm gonna go with the Sting in this situation. It is a tour de force. How's that? I very rarely say that, but it's just it's a great episode of television.
Mm-hmm. What did you think of the slobs versus snobs aspect of the Sting?
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I do not say snobs versus slobs all the time. This was something that came up on yesterday's stream. I think Nintendo, or you and Nintendo, pointed out like all the things that I say, and I guess that's a trope for me. Snobs versus slobs.
All right. Well, I won't take up any more of your time. We very much appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show, you guys. This was really fun. It was fun to talk about one solid episode and one really good episode. So, I hope you guys vote for Futurama in the end, but I haven't seen the SpongeBob episode, so who knows?
Oh, dear. That's not the one that's in competition. But
maybe there's a real SpongeBob banger coming up.
All right, man. You have a good one.
Yeah.
Have a good night, you guys.
See ya.
Bye.
All right, so the Simpsons guy picked Futurama. What does that tell you?
Yeah, right?
Okay, Shadow, what do we have up next?
Okay, so next up I have on the list Samurai Jack with The Birth of Evil. Parts 1 and 2.
Yeah, there's a bit of controversy surrounding this. So, according to the Emmy website and Wikipedia and everything we could find, it just says The Birth of Evil.
Yep.
It doesn't actually specify whether it's part 1, part 2, or both. And, I mean, you might think both, but if it was both, it would be hour or more, would it not? I know it's technically 44 minutes, but many things that are 44 minutes are in the hour-long category.
Yeah, as we've seen in subsequent years. I ultimately came to the conclusion that it was both because I found an article, which I sent to Pi, where that article referred to it as being both parts. And also, the Emmys are so incredibly inconsistent every single year with their own rules that I think it's entirely plausible that they nominated both parts for the regular category instead of the hour-long one. So,
like, just to prove a point here, the more than 1 hour category for this year that we're going to talk about next week has the Powerpuff Girls' "Twas the Fight Before Christmas."
Mm-hmm.
How long is that episode, Shadow?
45 minutes, roughly.
Yep. So,
yeah.
There you go.
There you go. My personal belief is Gendy didn't want to be nominated twice for the same category. That's my personal belief. So he's like, no, please put this one in a different category so I can win twice.
Did Gendy work on the Twas? Oh,
no, the other nominee.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think he was on Powerpuff Girls by the time Twas the Fight was going on. So.
No, he did have creative influence over early Powerpuff Girls.
Yes, he did.
Okay, so anyway, The Birth of Evil, parts 1 and 2, I guess.
Yep.
I had to rush to watch the second part right before this because the other thing too, thanks to HBO Max and a lot of other sources using the Roman numeral system, right? Mm-hmm. I almost didn't watch part 2 because I thought part 2 might have been called something else, and this is just called The Birth of Evil. I almost didn't watch it because
in the defense of the show, the actual title card that shows up during the episode does label them as part 1 and part 2.
Right.
But
no, much happened. Not much happened in part 1, Toon Jay. Evil got birthed. The title happened in part 1.
Yeah, a lot of part 1 was set up. Yeah. So
okay, so the plot of this is there's evil in space, as a black cloud of evil that these deities fight, and a little piece of it falls down to Earth and grows some black spikes, and then after a long time emerges as a coup. He one of the guys that basically is an army that's sent to fight him, and all of the army but the leader gets taken out by these spikes. And the leader, please correct me if I'm wrong, Shadow, he is Jack's father, right?
yes.
Okay. He looks exactly like Jack, and he's got a pregnant wife that gives birth at the end of the episode, but it's not exactly spelled out, and I didn't want to sound stupid, but I thought it was clearly... Anyway. But yes, Jack's father is the lone fighter against a coup. He basically loses and gets tied up, and then the gods, like, take mercy on him, and are like, here's a sword that can actually fight this thing. And he fights many copies of a coup, and wins for the time being, and his son is born.
A son is born. Yeah. Okay. So this is another one of those cases where, while I think the episode is good for Samurai Jack, it's not the best episode that could have been picked. Not by a long shot.
Really?
No. I think there are better episodes than this one. But in terms of what this two-parter does for the series as a whole, it's very, very important, because it gives us the backstory of how Aku came to be, and the entire setup for him taking over and Jack's father defeating him the first time, and which will later lead into the premiere movie, which is the first 3 episodes. I think it's very cool. And there's definitely a lot of awesome animation sequences as per the norm with Samurai Jack. Yeah, I mean, I still think it's good. It wouldn't have been my go-to pick, but I'm still satisfied with it being the nominee that was submitted.
Certainly. I mean, aside from the fact that it should be in the other category.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly it's cool. The first part does suffer a little bit from that, like, Samurai Jack slowness.
Yeah.
Where it really does, like, take a while to kind of get anywhere. But what I do see, like, is really cool. In particular, the sequence where the army is going to fight a coup, and all of the spikes start taking them out. And obviously it's a Cartoon Network show, so they can't show them being, like, brutally impaled. But you hear the sounds of the horses and the men screaming in pain. And then it's really cool because it's just, like, the sequence builds and builds, and you just see these spikes growing. And, the galloping of the horde of horses, and then all of a sudden, there's just one horse. Like, you can only hear one gallop. That is such that touch was, like, really cool, because it's just like, okay, because at first you're like, oh, are they dying? Are they getting hurt? Like, what's, they can't show it. And then more and more of it happens, and it builds, and then it's just very clear, like, yeah, all of these guys died, seemingly. And just the one guy is left.
Yeah,
very, very cool.
I think it was a very clever way to get around that whole censoring everything. However, this is one of these cases where, because I haven't really watched through the entirety of Samurai Jack since seeing season 5, but having seen this episode again after that, it makes me really kind of wish that the series was made with the same freedoms that season 5 was made with, because
Really?
there are definitely, like, don't get me wrong, Samurai Jack was a very creative show in getting around censoring stuff, especially with a lot of the enemies being robots, so they used oil instead of blood and things like that. Really cool creative ideas, and I like the way that they were able to stretch their limitations. However, with what Samurai Jack season 5 was able to deliver, not having those limitations, I feel like would have helped benefit this a bit more, especially with a lot more of the tragedy for, I definitely think that, especially when it comes to, like, Aku destroying the town at the beginning of part 2.
Yeah.
It's a little goofy. Like it didn't.
Yes.
It didn't.
He just like laser beams the whole
the
area
ground, and there's explosions, and it's like it's implied that people are getting caught in it, but like
it's like a Powerpuff Girl fight. Really,
Yeah.
it's like a big monster in a Powerpuff Girl fight. Except that show, you don't
Yeah, that
or
show's-
expect anyone to die.
it's
But
meant
this
to
show-
be goofier and sillier. This
Right.
one, you're supposed to be like seriously engrossed in the narrative, and I think that things like that are hampered by it, whereas like, you know, other scenes, it definitely is enhanced. And I kind of wish that there was more freedom on that front. And I think that if it was made with like season 5 freedoms, it could have been a little bit better in delivering on that aspect.
It would have been. I mean, I think it would have sold it more if the spikes had blood on them. Like,
Yeah,
we
that
didn't see
too.
anything else, just a little bit of red. And I know they couldn't do it at the time.
Nope.
But I don't know. I mean, again, I haven't seen season 5, but I do think that limitations can beget creativity. You know, I don't know that they would have done that sequence like that if they didn't have to. Like, but I do agree because there is like a lot of vagueness. Also, like Aku kind of has that weird thing where like he doesn't kill the main guy. Like he doesn't kill. He just kind of ties him up, and I guess it's because he wants to watch him suffer. But it's just like so he's fine like killing all the other men and like everyone else, but just like this one guy he's gonna leave alive just because he's got villain syndrome.
Yeah. So I also interpreted it as he was the guy that freed Aku.
Right.
So he was at the very least like, I'm not going to kill you instantly because I do kind of owe you for this. So instead, I'm going to leave you alive and I'm going to torture everyone you know and love while you watch.
But I don't think the episode hammered that point.
No,
either.
I don't think it did either, but I could see if that's what was the
Right.
intent, even if it wasn't completely executed well.
Here's another thing. And again, you're much more familiar with the show. Is Aku always this powerful? Like,
I mean, it depends on the circumstances of the episode. There are cases where he is able to like just destroy an entire population in an instant. And then there are other episodes where he tries to order a pizza. You know, it really just depends on the context of what the episode is going for. There are instances where, you know, and this episode kind of goes into his shape-shifting, which he does in plenty of other episodes. That's kind of a good way of representing his threat and his power. And I think there's a lot of good battles between him and Jack where he shapeshifts that kind of implement that aspect. But
he can even get sick, apparently.
yes, he can. He can. So yeah, it really just depends on the circumstances. But ultimately, and again, the premiere movie's another good serious showcase of Aku's power, like kind of tormenting the village of humans. Yeah, he can be the ultimate, you know, manifestation's the word I was looking for of evil. He really is. Yeah. Let me think. There's one other aspect I wanted to comment on.
Let's see.
Oh, that's right. This, I personally want to believe that Primal is tied to this show based on when Aku crashes into Earth and there's a giant explosion. I personally believe that is the ending to Primal. That is how Primal will end, is with Aku crashing into Earth. So, that's what I believe. Gendy, make it happen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. No, I think this might be the favorite, my favorite thing of Samurai Jack that I've seen so far. Admittedly, I have not seen a ton of Samurai Jack, but I really liked this. So of note, the battle between Jack's father and Aku. So basically, he can't do anything to him at first, but then once he gets the Master Sword, he's able to just cut through him like butter. So. But the battle where Aku splits himself and then like inhabits the armor of all the guys he's killed, and then he just laughs like and it's really cool because they do. My favorite use of the weird aspect ratio thing so far is that they just kind of start popping up a bunch of like super close-ups on each Aku's face as they laugh at him all over the screen, and you really do get the feeling of like, oh man, like this is gonna be a battle, and it was.
Yeah,
really
it's
cool
probably
stuff.
the best sequence in the whole episode. is that final fight between Jack's father and Aku. It's really invigorating the whole way through, and I definitely always look forward to that.
Yes. Rest in peace, Mako.
Mako.
I believe it's Mako.
I believe it's Mako.
It's Mako in the chorus. Anyway, regardless, he was a great voice actor, and like Aku here is just so good. Like he's such a presence. It's a great use of the slow pacing of the show that it's just like he just starts stretching and like he like his nails grow longer and like it's just like holy cow, this is like unstoppable evil.
My favorite thing about Aku is the sound design that they use whenever he like moves his arms or grows tall or stretches his limbs, because it's like that crunch, like bone crunching, snapping, like those they really like just exaggerate the movement in such like a satisfying way, and it really emphasizes like a lot of stiffness, especially with him like quote unquote being born, which is great. Yeah, I've always loved, and Aku's theme too is like super ominous. It's super just like, it's just like a low hum most of the time, but it just like really sets the whole atmosphere and tune of like this ultimate evil that it really just sends shivers down my spine. I love it. I absolutely love it.
And how about the beautiful backgrounds, like where everything's on fire, and like the black spikes too. Like there's just something very off-putting and creepy about just a forest full of just these like sharp black poles. Like it's so otherworldly. And obviously we know it's going to lead to Aku, but it's just like it's just so strange. Like they couldn't have done this as the first episode of the show because it's so like people would have tuned out, but because you already know who Aku is and you care and you're interested to see how it plays out, like they're able to get away with a lot slower pace and really take their time in setting him up. Like Aku says in the chat, "I'm the best cartoon villain in the history of the universe."
He's up there.
I love his design. Yeah, I love his face. Like it's so iconic. Like
very prominent.
I didn't watch the show and I think it's iconic, you know? Very, very cool. So yeah, I've got a lot of really good things to say about it. Is it better than Futurama's The Sting is a question I will have to answer by the end of this, and I don't. So, you ready to move on?
Yeah, I suppose we can. We can move on to the next episode.
Yes.
So next up is South Park with It's Christmas in Canada.
There's no Canada like
French Canada. There's no Canada like French Canada.
French Canada.
Yeah.
It's the best Canada in the land. Okay, so switching gears a little bit.
A little
bit. You know, basically, it's Christmas time in South Park, and some Canadians have come to take Kyle's adopted little brother Ike back to Canada and away from the Broflovskis, because the new prime minister has issued that all Canadians must go back to Canada. And so the boys have to go on an adventure into Canada to find him and to talk to the prime minister to convince him otherwise. And along the way, they meet up with some colorful characters, travel on a road, and meet the man behind the curtain. It's a Wizard of Oz parody.
Yep.
Very, very transparently, it's a Wizard of Oz parody. Yeah, so the curious thing I was kind of looking is that South Park is nominated, I believe the first episode nominated is Big Gay Al's Big Gay Boat Ride in like 1999, something like that, 1998. And that is, it's either season 1, no, what is it, season, yeah, it's a season 1 episode 4. So I think this episode that we're talking about, Christmas in Canada, was the first episode that I noticed a notable worseness. That's not a word. A notable drop in quality from other South Park episodes we've watched. I think not in terms of anything other than the visuals. I think that I don't really know much, but the show evolves visually. Obviously, going from the pandemic special to this, maybe that's what made it the most obvious. But I would argue that even like Make Love Not Warcraft is already starting to look a lot more like modern South Park. Only a few seasons later. But yeah, like, did you notice that the frame rate was a little lower?
Bit. Yeah, it was a little choppier.
The designs of like buildings and stuff looked flat. Like newer South Park goes for a lot more of like I don't want to say realistic, but like, you know, the buildings aren't just like rectangles. You know, they're actual boxes. Like there's a depth to things that there isn't really in this episode. Now, that being said, I think the reason they nominated this is that there's a lot of crowd shots in this episode. A lot of songs and crowd shots. There are other episodes that I thought probably should have been nominated this season. I agree. Someone said, what is it? Good Time with Weapons, which features like an anime-esque style, and is just a really kind of funny episode. I would have nominated that personally, but
it's also a holiday episode, though. You got to keep that in mind, and that seems to be a common trend with nominees. So can't forget that.
Yeah. Yep. Boy, Canadians are weird. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, I didn't think that the animation was like too terribly bad or crude or whatever. I just noticed it, and it might have just been because we had just watched the pandemic special, which was made. Oh, you know, like a good 18 years after, 17 years after. Like, of course, the art's gonna get a little more complex.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that. I honestly, with this episode, I think it's perfectly fine. I don't care that much. Like, I think maybe it's too parody-ish for my taste. It's kind of too close to The Wizard of Oz to really stand alone as its own story. It's kind of clever how they incorporate Wizard of Oz into this, and the idea that, you know, Kyle's adopted brother is getting taken back to Canada. Like, it's a cool idea for a story. And although Canada's been referenced on South Park a number of times, I believe this was the first time the main characters spent an extended amount of time there. So yeah, like I think this is a perfectly like middle of the road South Park episode in terms of it doesn't do anything particularly great, but I like it. I like it fine enough. And another thing, maybe you'll notice this, is that this aside from one thing at the end of the episode, this has nothing at all to do with politics or you know, current events. There is one notable thing. But most of this episode is just, here's a story set within South Park that's also going to be a Wizard of Oz parody.
Yeah, which was very strange because I was kind of waiting for that for a while. I was expecting there to be some kind of like underlining like tone or message or something, and you know, not really. No,
South Park wasn't always like that, dude. It morphed into like a political show. I mean, there was always some political satire in it, but it wasn't always about like, you know, up to the moment real life events and you know, giant political, you know, statements and stuff. Like, it wasn't always like that. The thing about this episode is that at the end, it turns out that the prime minister is Saddam Hussein, who was captured, I believe, 3 days before this episode aired.
Oh, in real life. That's timing.
Well, I don't think it was a coincidence. No. I think they made most of the episode and then decided that's the twist.
Oh, okay.
Because the rest of the episode, I mean, honestly, it's just kind of an out of nowhere twist that it's like, I don't know. I guess it's kind of funny because it's like, here's this very evil man in real life that's a Wizard of Oz parody, and he's been hiding in Canada. Like, I don't know. But it's not like they really were even saying that much about it, really. Yeah, so I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's kind of one of those. It was a middle of the road episode for me. I thought there were definitely some standout moments. Of course, French Canada being super catchy. I don't know. I mean, I really don't have that much to say about it. It's just kind of like, it was just an enjoyable ride. I'm not like freaking out, praising all the great things the way I did with Black Friday or anything like that.
Right.
There weren't there wasn't like a super huge noteworthy like animated sequence other than, like you mentioned, the giant mob scenes where there's just a bunch of characters on screen at once, which was visually interesting. I mean, I like the interesting art style that they have for Canadians. I thought that was a fun way to kind of use a different way to animate characters within the same show.
What do you mean, buddy? That's just how we look.
Yeah.
I like the square wheels too. Mm-hmm. The only reason that exists is just because it's silly. There's not like any reason. I'm convinced at least that they just did it to be silly.
Well, I respect it for that much.
Yeah.
Is this Ike character? Is he in any other episode, or is he just for this one thing?
No, he's Kyle's brother. He's in the pilot.
Okay.
Don't kick the baby.
Okay.
Kick the baby. Okay. But no, he's a major character. He's had episodes all about him.
Okay.
No, he wasn't made just for this. He's from the start.
Okay, yeah. I didn't think we had really watched. I mean, maybe he was in other episodes I just never noticed, but he never really was prominent, at least in all the nominees before this one. So that's why
South Park has a very large cast. Stan has a sister as well. I don't think you've seen her.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. Kenny has a different amount of siblings depending on when in the series we're talking about. Oh yeah, Cartman's the only child.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is fine. I don't know. I guess sure it deserves to be nominated in the sense that like it is pretty ambitious with the amount of characters they have animated, and it is cool that they got this episode out really topically with Saddam. I don't know. It's fine. I don't know what else to say. I think the most interesting thing is kind of talking about how South Park has evolved over the years, because like I don't know. Are you noticing it too, that it's kind of we're going further back, things are getting a little cruder, they will continue. They will very much continue to get cruder. I'm excited that Chimpokemon is nominated because, well, you'll see.
Well, just based on that title alone, I have an idea of what it might be about, so I'm interested.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Cartman doesn't have a currently living brother. Well, Cartman doesn't have a brother that can be featured on the show.
That's actually the other thing, now that you mentioned the crudeness, is I noticed there was a lot more swearing. I mean, not that other episodes didn't swear, but it felt like there was more swearing in this episode than any other nominee we've seen so far. So yeah, now that you point that out, you're right. I did pick up on that.
Yeah.
So, interesting.
Yeah. No, I mean that's South Park. It started off as just a crude comedy. Mm-hmm. Like there really wasn't. I mean, Jesus was a character early on. Like I'm not saying there was nothing in terms of like satire of politics or religion or anything else. But it was very much a different show. And, like, if you were to plop this episode, like, this storyline right in the middle of, like, the last season, it wouldn't fit. It just simply wouldn't. It would be very, very, very weird because it doesn't have much to do with pop culture. And it's South Park definitely does parodies, but it generally doesn't do, like, whole movie parody. Like, you know what I mean? Like Imagination Land featured a lot of parody characters, but that story isn't. Yeah, they do some, but yeah, exactly. Early South Park was basically a test to see what the creators could get away with on TV at the time. Apparently, one of the lines that one of the Canadians sings about features a curse word that was uncensored in the original broadcast because apparently the broadcasters thought he was saying bonjour. That other Canada is a bonjour type of Canada. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me, but it's kind of funny that they got a much harsher curse on the air. But yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, yeah, you what was your impression of South Park before we started watching these? Because I know you had an impression on South Park.
Yeah, I thought it was more of what this was, where it's just a bunch of like offensive, language and insulting whoever group in a particular episode, and it's just a bunch of nasty just crude adult humor at its basic level, but like clearly I don't have that perspective anymore.
You might gain it again.
Who knows? Yeah, I mean, if it keeps going this way, we're going back to what I thought it was.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But I don't know. You're not a prude. Like, you don't mind cursing.
No, I don't. And I mean, I
certainly...
do. I curse. I don't do it on Pie's channel because I respect him.
Anyway, certainly there is episodes and plot lines and things that are very, very offensive by today's standards. In bad ways, not in like, ooh, I can't believe they said that word on TV. In like, oh no, I can't believe they really did this. But yeah, we also get to talk about the 9/11 episode soon.
Oh boy.
So with that teaser, we got to talk about the episode where they were threatened by terrorists in real life. We got to talk about all sorts of. We got the Blizzard episode with Warcraft.
Yep.
All sorts of stuff.
Oh well,
so,
you just had to mention 9/11, and there goes a siren. Way to go, Pie. Just kidding.
I want to make a joke, but I don't.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, next Shadow.
All right. Next up, we've got the 5th and final nominee. Ugh. This is my reaction.
All right.
To this nomination.
I'm not even gonna tell you the description. You all know what this episode is. I can break this down in 3 words. Not 3 words. I can break this down into 3 points. All right. This episode doesn't work fundamentally because 1. Although SpongeBob certainly has its fair share of visual gags, a large part of the more remembered, better SpongeBob jokes include some form of a dialogue, either just dialogue or a mix of dialogue and visual humor. And this episode is mostly gibberish. There's a few words, but it's mostly gibberish talk. I think that hurts the episode a lot. 2, there is no story.
Nope.
There is no story. You can be generous and say the story is them discovering fire and then trying to fight each other for it. But that is something that doesn't happen until the second half. And even still, it only amounts to them cooking things and then running away with fire. They don't invent fire. They don't do like nothing. It's not a story. And
it just
3
ends. There's no conclusion either.
Yes. Thirdly, and perhaps this has to do with the fact that there's no story. So much of this episode is repeated. A lot of the jokes and moments are just long gags for no reason. Squidward slipping on the slime happens way like it's funny the first maybe time or 2 that he slides past, but when it happens like 6 times in the exact same animation looped, it's not funny. SpongeBob thinking about the fire and cooking and everything, it just keeps flashing to the same images over and over. And although that joke does have a punchline at the end, it just goes on for longer than it needs to.
Yeah.
The fact that the music video at the end reuses clips from what we just saw, well, and from what we just saw, I think is even more egregious. It's just. In combination, I think these 3 things add up to just a really annoying experience. And the thing is, there are some jokes in here I like. I like the club crying because Squidward didn't choose it, because Squawk didn't choose it. Like, there are jokes. I like the Patchy stuff. There's stuff that works, but because it's so meandering, because you can't latch onto the dialogue because there's no dialogue. You can't latch onto the story because there's no story. You can't enjoy the jokes because the jokes just go on forever. So you're just, like... Yeah. Yes. Can we not count SpongeBob votes? No. This week we're counting SpongeBob votes. If people decide to choose a pretty bad SpongeBob episode over some amazing episodes of Futurama and Samurai Jack, and even the Simpsons, like, and South Park, like, if people really choose that, then you guys can live with that decision.
Yep. Because that's just sad.
Yeah. I don't care that it's SpongeBob. Like, look, I get it. There are like episodes of SpongeBob, like, what is it? The Inmates of Summer that we weren't too hot on. Yeah. But it's still a SpongeBob episode.
There was still like, something happened.
Right.
You know? Like, there was still a progression from beginning to end, and there were some jokes in there. And, whether or not the payoff was worth it, that's a different question, but there was still some kind of payoff for like what you were sitting through. Here, like I said, it just abruptly ends. Like there's nothing. It built to nothing. The other thing, and I'm not afraid to admit this, I've seen this episode plenty of times. I watched this on times 4 speed because I just knew how much of a squog it was to sit through.
Boo.
Thank you. It was still, hey, that joke was faster than any other joke in this episode.
I'm booing you because you sped up past it. I had to watch this stupid thing. I take this seriously.
Yeah, I took it seriously too, but I've seen it so many times that I already knew everything. I watched it on times 4, okay? Admittedly, when I watch stuff sped up, it's like times 2. I watched this on times freaking 4. I got this over with in 5 minutes.
Okay, well, yeah, regardless, the only thing that saves this is Patchy. Like,
really? Yeah.
All of that is fine. I when I was complaining about the reused clips, I just mean in general that if that doesn't tell you how reused the episode is, these clips work better in the music video than they work in the episode. Like, what does that tell you?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just there's just so little to latch onto that it's just boring. Even if it's like. Even if there's good jokes in here, and there's a few, it's basically like joke, and then like 4 minutes of sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, so much is repeated. I don't get it. It's like squog, fi, or what do they call the fire? Like foo.
Fui.
Fui. Yeah, it's like squog fui. Patar fui. Spongegar fui. It's just like, why do they all have to say it? When they're cooking food, it's just like, okay, there's a little variation in this gag. But it's just over and over and over. They run and cook something, and it's not funny. Episode or SpongeBob episode, dude. I don't know. Every episode of SpongeBob's over. All right, this is where we are right now. Just listen to what I'm saying. I'm not gonna give you a rating. I think this is terrible. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and the same thing with the whole like chase sequence at the end. It's like, yeah, like they steal it from each other a couple times. And then they continue to steal it from each other and continue to steal it. And it's like, dude, can we like we get it at this point. They're stealing the fire from each other. Can we move on to like the final payoff? And then it's like, nope, we're just going to end it. It rains. That's it. The end.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And regardless of Patchy being good, this is the animated category.
And that's exactly what I was going to say next was the fact that the live action segment is the best part should automatically disqualify this, because it's like we should only be looking at the animation, really. I mean, you could say, I don't even know if I'd count the robot as being animated, but like Potty's animated, so like that's the closest you can get. You got a puppet, you got a puppet that's semi-animated, and they added like visual effects for fire and laser beams, but it's like, no, you can't. I'm sorry. The fact that the live action sequence like outshines the actual animation, it should never have even been considered for a nominee. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, look, they tried. Certainly they tried. This was an interesting thing that they had tried, basically. Mm-hmm. But it just, I don't understand why they didn't have a story. I get it. Some of the appeal is seeing what these characters are like in prehistoric times or whatever, but like, people keep asking if I would re-rate this to be a SpongeBob. I re-rate this to be a blow. All right? Decide what you think. Why do I need to sit here and say that?
Yeah. I think it's an awful choice.
Yeah.
Especially for a SpongeBob episode in this day and age to be nominated. I never would have picked it.
Yeah. The caveman speech can be translated somewhat, but like, I don't care enough to like. There are some things that are clearly, but it's just like when SpongeBob is sitting there being like, Gary Tabonga, Gary. It's like, I don't care what he's talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Blech. Not a good episode in the slightest.
No. Do you think this would have worked better as a short? Yeah, certainly. I mean, if the whole thing was just like, let's get the novelty of them being cavemen without an actual story behind it, 11 minutes or especially like 4 or 6 minutes, sure, this could have been fine. But it felt like I don't know, it felt like they were short on time and stretched out jokes and animation and things, but I don't know that that's true. It's just how it felt. Like, definitely the first time you watch it as a kid, like, maybe you'll enjoy it just for the novelty, but like, it just doesn't give you anything to hang on to. And it's funny to me that like when we come back from the commercial, the narrator's like, when we last left them, they had discovered fire. It's like, don't give us narration like there's an actual story here. Why do we need to like are you kidding me? Ugh.
Ugh, indeed.
Yeah, ugh. Well, and I mean, there's the weird thing too that's like self-deprecating that this is before comedy. And the narrator at the end, what does he say? He says something like, "Well, that was a thing," or no, what's some parts of history should not be retold.
Yep.
And it's just like, I know it's supposed to just be like a deprecating humor joke, but it's just like a deprecating humor joke on an episode that really is something that should be forgotten and really does feel like something made before comedy. Like the best animation thing in this episode is the part at the beginning where SpongeBob's like, somewhere a caveman and a parrot are arguing about me and the parrot is winning.
Yeah.
Yes, that is I think the best animated, not including Patchy, but the best animated thing, and it's not even a part of the main thing. Like, very weird.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, no, this is Zora says season 3 was already dropping quality a bit in the second half. Kind of shows why Steve wanted to end SpongeBob by that point. Yeah, I mean, I think this episode kind of shows like SpongeBob the show was not designed to be SpongeBob the marketing tool that Nickelodeon wanted. And I don't know, maybe someone creative from the show decided they wanted this episode, but it seems most likely to me that someone saw how much people liked SB129 and wanted a whole episode that was like SB129 and then pushed, here's a special, like, please do a special based on this. Like, I don't see any other reason why the writers would have thought of this, but maybe they did. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend like I know, but it feels very much like something that was mandated by someone and then kind of forced to carry out by people who, like, didn't have that vision in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as Emmy nominations about animated shows involving cavemen, this is definitely the worst one. Last week's was far better.
Don't even invoke Primal. Don't. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, in hindsight, would I give this a scumbob? Now, like, the only thing that helps this episode is Patchy, and I really do like Patchy. I wasn't really focused on the Patchy stuff because I knew A, it was already good, and B, this is the animated Emmy. I'm like, yeah.
I'll outright say it was miserable.
Yeah.
I sat through it for 5 minutes and it was miserable.
Yep. No, whatever like enjoyment I had from seeing Shell of a Man and oh, what was the other one? The
Fear of a Krabby Patty.
Fear of a Krabby Patty. Yeah, it's like this one kind of took away that goodwill of like, when I was seeing those, I'm like, I could watch more SpongeBob, and then we get to this, and it's just like, I know this is an outlier from this era, certainly, but it's just like, this episode is bad, and then it's only worse from the fact that I've seen it a bunch of times. Oh yeah, I'm sure Nickelodeon did hype the heck out of this special.
Yeah, they did.
Yep,
I remember seeing it premiere.
Yeah, I don't know. I very unusual. Okay, so that's the 5 nominees.
That it is. Yeah.
How would you rank them?
Okay. All right. So, ranking wise, I think number 5 is pretty obvious because we just got done talking about it. I'm gonna put SpongeBob at the very, 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 very far bottom of the list.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
So in the 4th spot, this is a little tricky. I think I'm gonna put South Park at number 4. And I'm going to put Simpsons at number 3 because I think Simpsons' story was more charming, I mean, they're both based on movies, right? But
yeah,
I think I don't really know the movie that the Simpsons one was parodying, and also just based on the synopsis that I read, just going off of that, the Simpsons episode did things very, very differently from how the movie actually played out. It was just the concept that it borrowed. So it was kind of like a different take. And also the animated sequence in the middle with the whole music and all that. I'd put that at number 3 above South Park.
Okay.
In second place, see, this is where it comes down to, like, what do you prefer? You know, how do you judge the animation category? Do you go for animation? Do you, like, just visually astute
storytelling?
Blah, 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 blah.
Comedy, storytelling.
Yeah, do you go for comedy, storytelling, or do you go for, like, technical aspects? Because it's like, I would definitely give Samurai Jack the number 1 spot when it comes to the visuals and the actual presentation and cinematography and everything that goes into an animated series. But I cannot deny that the Futurama episode was extremely well written. Very incredible. It had me on the edge of my seat. And, you know, I was constantly thinking, oh, well, how is this working? How is it doing this? What's going to happen? Blah. You know, I was very, very engrossed in the Futurama episode. Whereas I agree, the Samurai Jack episode, especially part 1, is slow. And I know that the show can be slow, but I feel like part 1 is too slow, even for the show. So it's very, very hard for me to pick one over the other, because when it comes down to it, Samurai Jack is the most just visually distinct nominee in this bunch once again.
Correct.
And I think the thing that's just so amazing about it is every single shot, frame, what have you, every single one serves a purpose of some kind. There's always meaning or emotion behind every single frame, whether it's to set up whether to give a setting and a tone, or to give a character, like to present a character's emotion. I mean, there are so many shots where you just look at a character's face and their body language, and you can just feel exactly what they're feeling. It's so powerful on that front. I've really been going back and forth about this, and I feel like depending on the day, I could go one way or the other. So, I mean, gosh, I don't even know, man. This is like, without a doubt, one of the hardest decisions I've had to make between the two. Right. And I'm really trying to let my Samurai Jack bias, like, set aside. I cannot deny that the Futurama episode is really, really good. I'm reluctantly going to still give it to Samurai Jack, just because when it gets down to the principles of animation itself, that one executes and acts on it more than the Futurama episode. But it's so ridiculously unfairly close. I really could give it to Futurama, depending on what merits I was qualifying these. That's a tough choice, though. But yeah, I think that would be my ranking. I'd put Futurama in 2 and Samurai Jack in 1.
Okay, that's fair. Yep, SpongeBob is dead last. It's the only one of these I think is bad.
Agreed.
Outright. And then yes, I do agree. Christmas in Canada next. Just like, my brain kind of feels like I'm on autopilot watching this episode. Like, it's very pleasant. Like, it goes by real nice. It certainly has like a few things in it that are like, yeah, like Saddam Hussein, it's surprising that he shows up, and you know, it's a solid story. Hearing Cartman cry at the end is pretty funny. After he acts all tough. But overall, I think it's a pretty forgettable episode of South Park, although it's fine. And then The Simpsons. Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of said it all. It's a nice episode. It's not a perfect episode by any means, but it has some nice animation in there. I like the backstory. It does kind of go through the painful Marge and Homer not getting along relationship thing that happens a lot on the show, but it's not too long, and it's touching. It's kind of cute at the end. So that one, and then so yeah, I agree with you so far. Here's the thing. I am very, very, very close on The Birth of Evil and the Sting. But here's what I'm going to do. I am going to put The Birth of Evil at number 2 and the Sting at number 1. And I think your opinion is 100% valid. I completely get it. But what I will say is there's not a second of the Sting that I am not entertained at. Whereas The Birth of Evil is long and slow, and I also don't think it's fair that The Birth of Evil gets to be twice the length.
Yeah, I also don't think that's fair either.
The fact that these are very, very close in my mind, but one of them gets double the runtime, and I don't feel greatly outperforms Futurama, that's the tiebreaker for me. I needed a tiebreaker, so I'm gonna go with the fact that Futurama accomplishes very, very, I feel similarly in levels of impressed with both of them, but I think the Sting takes it for me just because it cuts out a little bit of the dead air, not dead air, but it gives a little more really good content than Samurai Jack does. But Samurai Jack certainly I agree. If we're talking on just the merits of animation, it's that one. Although Futurama's no slouch, we didn't talk about it, but the bees are a very well integrated CG. I like the really cool explosion that happens. Very well animated. The 2001 parody. All the weird things they do with the characters exploding during the song. There's a lot. I really wouldn't begrudge anyone for picking Samurai Jack over it. I think they're both very, very good picks, and if the Emmy voters picked one of those two, I'll be very happy. It's kind of like the Vat of Acid and The View from Halfway Down, where although yes, I think the BoJack episode is better. I still think the Vat of Acid is a phenomenal episode of television, and happy with either. So that's my pick. That's the way I rank it.
Yeah, and I also agree. I think you're entirely justified. I think both of these episodes are very, very good contenders for the award and definitely deserve to be nominated. I'm content with either one being at the top. I think they're both well deserved.
Yep. Well, as it turns out, the Emmys picked The Birth of Evil.
Da, 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 da.
Yep.
The Birth of Evil.
There it is.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, not surprising. It's cool though, because I would imagine if there was going to be any bias, I would imagine it'd be more towards Futurama, just because of a lot of the names behind it are kind of prestigious writer names or whatever. People in the industry that whatever. I'm sure Gendy is known and respected, but Matt Groening, David X. Cohen, Ken Keeler, these are names that are kind of big thanks to The Simpsons and Futurama, but yeah, very happy to see Samurai Jack got it. It's very weird to think that this and the winner of the more than 1 hour category are the same length.
Yeah,
doesn't make any sense, but what are you gonna do? But yeah, that's really cool. Good job, Emmy voters. Now, the poll.
Wait, we gotta talk about our choices before we get to the poll.
All right. I haven't looked at the poll yet, but I have a bad feeling.
Yeah, just based on one person's comment in the chat, I'm afraid. Do you want to go or should I?
Well, I'll just remind everyone, vote in the poll, please. I'll go first.
Okay.
So the episode I'm picking is a Teen Titans episode, How Long is Forever?
Good choice. Very good choice.
Season 2 premiere aired in January of 2004. There might be better episodes in Season 2, especially towards the end, but I feel like How Long is Forever works especially well because it's kind of standalone in terms of because Season 2 is with Tara and there's some great stuff with her, but a lot of it is kind of contingent on the storyline. So I feel like How Long is Forever is a very good, very well remembered Teen Titans episode that doesn't really require a lot of backstory. But yes, this is the episode, of course, where Starfire gets hurled into the future and finds out that all of her friends have scattered. They did not stay in contact. And they're all in various states of mental illness, quite honestly, except for Robin.
Yep.
But yeah, basically this is the episode that kind of cements that Starfire is the heart of the team. She's kind of the one that keeps everyone together. She values the friendship and family that they have, and she helps keep everyone together. And it's just a very touching story about the nature of friendships. And how how fragile they can be sometimes. How, if one thing goes wrong, your very close group of friends could never speak to each other ever again, and it's sad. I think it's an episode that's very very true to life. Yeah, and although Starfire never gets a season storyline of her own in the show, I would say How Long Is Forever is probably like her one of, if not her strongest kind of starring role.
Agreed. Yeah, no, that's an excellent choice for a nominee. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. Tunjay has a super chat. Thank you. Who nominates Born Again Crabs / the camping episode. I don't care if they're not from the same half hour. The episodes from the 2008 Emmy were.
That's fair. That's
completely fair.
Entirely
completely fair. And I agree with your picks in that, like, Born Again or the camping episode is definitely a very, very, very memorable. Born Again Crabs, that's the one where the Flying Dutchman takes his soul. Yeah, I don't really.
That's right.
That's one of those episodes I don't remember too well.
62 cents. That's all I remember. That's the only thing I really remember is that.
If I were to pick a SpongeBob episode for around that time, and I don't know that this fits exactly in the timeline, I would have gone with Midlife Crustacean. Banned episode or not, it's an episode that I think of a lot of SpongeBob episodes. I think it's an episode that is like means more to you as an adult. Like, I think there is something very, very real about that episode that is absent from a lot of others. Yeah. And people agree with me. Nice. Yeah. All right, what's your pick?
So I'm actually going to pick an episode from a show that was nominated, because I think that there was a better Samurai Jack choice. I think there were a couple better Samurai Jack choices, but the one that I would go with is my favorite episode of the entire series, and that is Jack versus the Ninja. And the reason I picked that episode
is it because he fights a Twitch streamer?
All right, let's just end the show. It was fun, guys. Thanks for joining. We're not even going to look at the poll. We're done. Good night, everyone. See you next week. This is an episode where Aku hires a ninja assassin to challenge Jack to a duel. And it's got a good build-up, but the ultimate payoff is this, I think it's like 5 to 7 minutes long, but it doesn't drag. It's just this amazingly animated fight scene of Jack and the ninja in pure light and darkness. The entire scene takes place, and it's like, it's just so incredible. So it starts with them fighting, and it's taking place during a sunset where the sun is going down. Jack is completely covered in all white, and the ninja is in all black. And the entire fight takes place over this timed sequence where as the sun sets, the darkness fills in more, and the ninja gains more of an advantage over Jack because he has more area to work with, whereas Jack's space is limited. The way it's animated is each character is pure white and pure darkness in this mesh of black and white backgrounds. So you can see each character's silhouette kind of overlap into the other one. It's so beautifully animated.
Ooh, that sounds really cool.
It is so visually thrilling. I cannot sing its praises enough. I absolutely love it. There's a lot of great Samurai Jack episodes, but when it comes down to an artistic battle, I don't think there's a single battle in the entire series more artistic than that fight. I absolutely love it. Oh my gosh, it's just amazing. The animation is gorgeous. The story is pretty good. It's got a good build up, but that ultimate payoff is just the best 5 minutes in the entire series, in my opinion. It is.
Hey, Shadow, that episode's not in the time period.
It aired on June. Let me check.
Ample retracted their statement, so maybe it is.
Okay, I was gonna say I literally just checked it 10 minutes ago. I'm pretty sure it was June of 2000.
You called him out.
June of 2003, which would fall into the timeline. Hang on, I'm double checking. I've got it right here. Jack versus the Ninja, June 14th, 2003. It does qualify.
Just barely.
Just barely, but it qualifies.
Yeah. No, it sounds really cool. I guess I'd also like to make it clear that although these picks are mostly just what we would want to see nominated. I do think The Sting is like really, really good, and I don't know what would have beat it in my mind. I'm not saying that Teen Titans episode is necessarily better, but I can tell you that Teen Titans episode is definitely better than the SpongeBob one, probably better than the South Park and Simpsons episodes too. So I'm just throwing that out there.
It's all good, Ample. No worries.
Ample, I'm gonna hold this against you and beat you mercilessly.
Wow, that's brutal.
In Nickelodeon Smash Bros. We were playing some matches earlier, Shadow.
Okay.
You gotta let me finish.
Okay, that's fair.
Ample kicked my butt, so. Okay.
Let's get to the poll, I guess.
All right, results are in.
I'm not thrilled based on what I've seen the chat say, so I've got a sinking feeling about this.
All right, well, you might be happy or maybe not, but Joe Biden won the election.
Yeah! Woo!
All right,
did South Park write it as though Trump was going to win again?
All right. So, coming in dead last, and surprisingly, The Simpsons always does very poorly on these polls. The way we weren't at 3%. Oh my gosh, this poll is disgusting. And second to last is Futurama The Sting with 12%.
Boo.
Out of 446 votes. Above that is Christmas in Canada with 13% of the votes, so close, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
Above that is Samurai Jack: The Birth of Evil with 27%.
Boo. I am booing your fan base. I'm not even gonna deny it.
Hey, Shadow, you know what? Next week, let's put the poll on your channel.
Yeah, well, that's a little, yeah.
Well, no, wait, next week
it'll be unfairly biased, dude.
No.
You chose the wrong week, man.
Okay, all right. Next time there's a SpongeBob episode, we're putting the poll on Shadow's thing and we'll link it. All right.
Okay.
You don't mind doing that as your community post?
Yeah, we can do that. That's fine.
It'll be good advertisement for the live stream.
Yeah.
Okay, at 44% of the votes picked UGG. 44% of 446 people just saw SpongeBob and clicked.
They're all wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, you know what? There's differences of opinion, and then this is
just wrong.
So it's just so. I can't.
No, that just tells me.
I respect people's opinion. I'm not doing a recount of the vote or anything, but I really didn't think. Like, I don't know. I guess, yeah. Let's host them on your channel. Or I'll just obscure SpongeBob
I don't even believe anyone that voted for UGG watched the other episodes. I don't even
believe anyone who watched for UGG watched UGG.
Yeah, I really don't believe it.
All right, well, switching topics.
Okay.
Thank you for the super chat, Alyssa, who asks if we've done any spooky things for this month yet. We gotta do spooky things because it's October.
The spookiest thing I've done is I put out a video on Danny Phantom, the Ultimate Enemy for Game Boy Advance. So I talked about the Ultimate Enemy, the episode and the game in that video. And I've got another Danny Phantom video coming out, not this Friday, but next Friday. So I'm kind of getting in the Halloween mood by talking about Danny Phantom.
Yeah. I played as Danny Phantom.
Yeah. In the new Nicktoons All-Star Brawl game.
Yeah. Over on Pie Guy Plays. Watch it now. Yeah, no, I haven't done anything yet. I don't know if I'm going to have time to do it, but I want to go pumpkin picking with my girlfriend. And she wants to carve pumpkins too. I don't know if I have the patience for that personally, but we might do that. And then I'm thinking watching Over the Garden Wall might be like a tradition because I showed her it last year. So yeah, that's kind of my plans for that. I'm not like too big into the Halloween spirit. This might be blasphemy, but it's my least favorite of like the Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas trifecta. So
I like Halloween. I usually get into it a little bit. I'm not as into it this year as, I mean, okay, the past like couple years I haven't been as into it because obvious things, but I usually am really into Halloween, and I usually marathon all of Courage around this time. But
there's a new Courage to watch.
There is. Maybe it'll get nominated for an Emmy next year.
Oh,
it would qualify for next year.
No,
but
it's
a kids show.
Yeah. Man. All right. Well, I hope you guys. Oh wait, we got
to announce next week's nominees that we're talking about.
What is Shadow's channel called? The Ink Tank.
No, don't listen to him. It's called Shadow Streak, just like my name. Okay, so yeah, next week we are going to be talking about the hour or more category for the 2004 Emmys, and we have 2 nominees next week, both of which are pretty exciting to talk about. The first of which being the Powerpuff Girls for the very first time, which is thrilling. The Twas the fight
or for the very last
Christmas.
time, depending on how you look at it.
Or the very last time, yes. Twas the fight before Christmas. I cannot wait. And then the other nominee is Star Wars Clone Wars chapters 1 to 20. We talked about 21 to 25 a couple weeks back, and we're going to be talking about the other 20 chapters, or the first 2 seasons, as well. So those are the 2 nominees for next week.
Exciting. Yeah. I'm happy with that. That's seems like an easy 2 things to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Both things I'm very, very passionate about. So, yeah, you better believe I'm going to be talking a lot.
I'm not going to show up next week, guys. It's just going to be
the Shadow Show. Yeah.
I'll get monsters to replace me for the Star Wars for Gendy. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I think this was a particularly fun stream. I want to thank the Real Gyms once again for being a part of this. Currently, me and Jim are doing Simpson chats on Monday nights. I don't know how much longer we'll do it, but we're going to talk about the newest Treehouse of Horror on Monday. I got a lot of things to plug. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. But yeah, we're getting there on the award show. Really, we're getting close to being done with the hour-long category.
We just got a couple more years. Then we're out of the 2000s.
No Gendy this week, but there is a Gendy show next week. And a Craig McCracken show. Ooh. So it's the 2 All-Stars.
Yeah, it is.
So maybe we'll make a few phone calls.
Yeah, we've got connections.
Yeah, maybe I'll get Lauren Faust on the show.
Yeah, we could maybe even get George Lucas back. Who knows? Guess you'll just have to wait and see.
All right, PIEGUYRULZ out.
See you guys.